never worn an apron before.
Because I have zero baking skills of my own, I asked for professional help.
So we're going to take our flour
From Kathy Guler, owner of Foodie's Culinary Academy.
We are going to learn to make mile-high apple pie.
But first, let's get one thing straight. The way Guler sees it.
And you can buy a frozen pie, and if you never made a pie, you might not even know that there is a dramatic difference between fresh ingredients and the labor, the love that goes into it.
I'm starting to feel like it's going to take a lot of my own energy to make this pie.
Okay.
Blending ingredients for the dough to make pie crust.
Okay, so here's our rolling pin. So push it.
Rolling, peeling, chopping, stirring. Me trying to force the warming dough into something resembling a pie crust.
You've just kind of just handled it and felt it all. And when you buy a pie in the store, you can tell that the crust was stamped. It has an exact, precise, uniform, jagged pattern on the edge.
No uniform patterns here.
It's a little off top, like giving it a haircut.
But labor-intensive pie crusts aside, Guler says she's surprised by how unfamiliar her students are, even with the basics of cooking, like measuring flour.
Takes a little practice, you know, so we have to peel apples. I did a few more than you did. And that's just from practice. That just practice makes perfect. There's a desire to want to learn how to do things, but the time, having the time available.
Making meals from scratch is hard and can be really time-consuming. Clearly, it's easier just to buy a frozen pie crust from the grocery store. In fact, studies show we're spending a lot less time in the kitchen. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2014, we spent just 35 minutes in the kitchen on prep and cleanup. 35 minutes! And one of the ways we're cutting down time is by buying partially prepared foods, like bagged lettuce and marinated pork, that are processed by machines and then brought home from the store.
To save time, we're often using more of something else, and in some cases that might be energy. Maybe some of what we're doing in the name of convenience or our health has unintended implications about the energy needed to produce food that way.
That's because with this shift, we are essentially substituting fossil fuels for human labor. Those machines that process our food, they usually run on coal or natural gas-fired electricity, and we're relying on them more and more as we outsource food prep. According to one of the few studies on this issue by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, this move towards energy-intensive processing accounted for about half of the growth in food-related energy use between 1997 and 2002.
So sometimes you'll actually go through the food processing plants, and it's not robotic yet, but you'll see just as much machine time of the product being touched as individuals touching it. So there's all the energy there, of course. If you've never taken a tour of a major food processing plant, everybody should.
So I took her advice and visited the Western Sugar Cooperative Facility in northern Wyoming.
So right now we're almost to 120 tons per hour of beets. That's how much we're cutting.
Of beets, my tour guide says. Sugar beets, the white root vegetable used to make your table sugar. And turning these into this requires many different machines. From retro control panels to massive motors, boilers, slicers, pumps, and diffusers, making all sorts of industrial size and grunts. And then we arrive at a conveyor belt all loaded up with waffle fries. Whoa!
That's what they look like when they've been cut up.
Shannon Ellis says turning beets into sugar isn't simple.
Oh, it takes a little bit of doing. Yeah, it does. Every machine has electricity going to it. Natural gas and electricity are the two biggest hits that we have.
According to Ellis, energy accounts for over 50% of the factory's costs.
If you watch right here, this is actually the sugar was just made.
And is now being tossed around by a massive machine, a dryer, to remove any last bits of moisture.
And that's just freshly made sugar. It's really good stuff.
Fresh out of the dryer or the oven. Lucky for me, I get to take this pie home. But here's the thing. Energy inputs are everywhere in our food chain, from the machines that make our sugar to the freezer that will store my leftover pie. And when it comes to homemade food, whether it's made from scratch or from processed ingredients, there is another important factor in the already complicated energy equation, and that's food waste. Think about vegetables and dinner leftovers that end up in the trash. We waste about 35% of our food and the energy that goes into making it. For Inside Energy, I'm Lee Patterson. And don't worry, None of this pie will go to waste.